Hello, everyone. Welcome to Clarity 16.0.1 support training. My name is Dave Sprague, and in this section, we'll be covering the task management updates. So, what's new? There's a few things we're going to focus on. One being field level security. The task object and its attributes can now be secured using field level security. And as a standard part of field level security, selected object attributes can be renamed. So these out of the box labels can be updated to be more meaningful to your users. Secondly, auto scheduling has been introduced for projects. Essentially, this provides the ability to perform auto scheduling in terms of creating a tentative schedule from the project task timeline. Thirdly, a new configurable task workspace has been introduced in the form of a configurable grid where you can view, edit, and manage tasks across investments such as projects and custom investments. The configurable grid includes support for export to CSV, group by, filtering and search, save views, inclusion of widgets and to-dos, as well as a configurable details task flyout. As you probably are learning, these are common things associated with the common grid. Associated with this is the My Tasks list and the previous task grid are really end of life. They've been replaced in total with the new configurable tasks workspace. And lastly, users can edit assigned project tasks in the modern UX. Currently, this was only available, or previously, this was only available to those that operated in the classic user experience. So why is this important? First off, on field level security, it was a feature request as a result of the customer innovation program. So we're happy to bring that forward. That helps drive adoption, of the modern UX. Administrators require those flexible tools to secure selected task details and provide end users with the right information with company-specific naming conventions at the right time. Secondly, project auto scheduling. This too was a feature request from the customer innovation program. Essentially, we want to provide a way for customers to reduce their dependency on Clarity PPM Gantt or other desktop scheduling tools such as Open Workbench or Microsoft Project. Thirdly, the configurable task workspace. This is really a way to drive adoption. Team members themselves have an improved user experience and they reduce the total number of clicks required to find my work. And the key thing here is across multiple investments. The previous task workspace only supported projects. So as I mentioned earlier, this area now supports projects and custom investments. The last item on the list is also a feature request from the Customer Innovation Program, where users can edit their assigned project tasks within the modern UX. Again, this allows customers to make that transition from classic to modern with its existing access security configuration. So what's changed? So from the task field level security perspective, just a little bit more information on here. Field level security applies to 124 task unique attributes. As with all of the field level security capabilities in the application, the administrator, as shown up in the upper right here on this slide, grants or revokes, edit or view access at the group level. And then the administrator has that added flexibility to modify out of the box field names. There's an example in the lower right here where the status field and its out of the box label called status is modified to state, which shows up in the grid as well as on the flyout. And you can see the name change, but also a shield indicating that field level security is in play for that particular field. Project auto scheduling. What we've done is we've essentially, based on the customer input, brought forward the same auto schedule capabilities that were available in PPM Gantt in Classic, if you will, and brought those forward directly into the modern UX. So from a given project, within the actions pull down, there is a new option, rightfully called auto schedule, and it brings up all those same options that you should be familiar with in the context of Classic. Nothing has changed, nothing's been modified. It's all the exact same capability that's brought forward. And we'll go into more of that a little bit later. Also, from an auto schedule perspective, once it's engaged, the user is taken to the timeline view, clearly indicating with a banner that this is a tentative schedule. And on the right-hand side in the timeline view, you have basically some lighter shading that represents the current schedule, and as opposed to the color-coded shading that represents the tentative schedule. And you can hover over either of these to see details associated with each. While you're in tentative mode, the schedule is locked. So if other users attempt to come into the schedule while you're in this mode, they will see that the schedule is locked themselves. And once you manipulate, you inspect the schedule here, make any adjustments that you want. You can either discard, return to the prior schedule and unlock the project, or publish and move forward with this new schedule and update the timeline view, and then obviously unlock the project itself. The new configurable tasks workspace. As you'd expect, it's got all the same capabilities that any of these common grids throughout Clarity have. Here's a couple examples of, you've got a task, you've got a configurable filtering that allows you to, in this example, filter based on task owner, one or more users. You've been able to, in this view, we've actually shown that widgets have been put in place. There are certain editable fields in the grid that are associated with those tasks. So there's editability, but there isn't the ability to add a plus button. Those are derived or added directly from at this point in time, the project or an investment, a custom investment type. And then as you can see on the right-hand side, just an example here, you've got task ownership across multiple investments and more importantly, investment types. Related to the new workspace, the My Tasks grid has been end of life that I mentioned, and typically how a user would get to that is from the tiles page. There is a link that says My Tasks. So we've taken that away. It'll become obvious as to why we've done that once we get into the demonstration, but just be aware of that. And the reason being, the reason that My Task link was no longer needed, that had kind of almost like a pre-built filter, right? When you navigated directly over to the workspace, it would present a list of those tasks just for you. This can be accomplished the same way, in a different manner, of course, but from the My Task workspace, simply leveraging the new capability around the configurable filtering. In this example, you would select assigned resources and you would select the current user. That's kind of our smart filter there. So this would then, once set, bring up all tasks for which the current user, the logged in user, is assigned to across multiple investments. And that's kind of the key thing. And then the value of that is an administrator you could create your own personal filter for that, but administrator could also create a saved view using this generic current user selection, and then that would become available for all users to basically find their assigned tasks very easily via a shared saved view. In addition, just some more detail on the upper screen shows kind of the default layout that you've got for 16.0 for My Tasks. And then the bottom left image shows the flexibility of 16.01 in this tasks workspace, where you could have any number of configured saved views, which would generate any number of column configurations that suits your needs. All right, so let's move on to the demo. We're going to cover off on three things: the field level security for tasks. We are going to talk about the auto scheduling capability, and then we'll take a look at the new configurable tasks workspace. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is field level security for the task object. So I'm going to go into the administration area, select attributes, and I've got a saved view here that is for the task object. You can see there's any number of objects I could have chosen, but I've locked this down to the task object. There's, like I mentioned earlier, there's over 100 attributes that can be secured. Sure, there's some limitations. We'll talk about that in a second, but the key thing here is to point out that you can see there's two fields at least at a minimum here that have been secured and given access rights to either edit or view these key task or status. And the other thing I want to point out is that these have been relabeled to meet user needs to be more meaningful. And so they've just been relabeled to state and critical task. So with the steps to secure these few selected task fields and grant access, either edit or view, let's see how this configuration is in action. So I'll remain logged in as Ian. I'm going to come over to the project area, and I'll go into this particular AARD payments project. We are going to land on the task module because that was the first one configured via Blueprint. And I'll go to the task grid. Now, first off, you can see the field level security shield has been applied here for state, which was, as you remember, renamed from status, and critical task, which was renamed from key task. I can click into the field here and I can see, I've got access to the pull down, so I have edit access. I can update these guys as I see fit based on my knowledge of the tasks. And on the critical task side, I have view only rights. So this, I cannot update or deselect or select the information that's already here. And so that's by design. That's kind of the control you have with field level security. So with a single line item selected, I'll open the details flyout here, and I can see a state is also present with a shield, same behavior with my editability, and the critical task area, it's a read only. I can't make any adjustments to that checkbox there, and that's by design. So the same capabilities are afforded to me in the grid as well as the flyout. The other thing I just want to show real quick is the column panel. You can see the field level security shield is carried directly here, so users bringing these into the grid or removing them from the grid can see that they are in fact under field level security control. All right, so let me switch gears to another user. I'm going to come in as Jason Berry. Oops, put in the right password. And I'll go into the same project. And as you can see, there may be a different layout here. The reason why state and or critical tasks are not visible, but they're not visible here. If I go into my details flyout, whoops, didn't select anything. The fields aren't here, but maybe I haven't configured them. But the key teller of all is I'm going to search for critical task, and it's not there. If I search on critical, I'll see that, but I know that I'm looking, in this example, looking for critical task. So this is an example of a user that is not part of a group that has either edit or view access to those secured task fields. All right, so that concludes the demo of task field level security. Let's move on to the modern UX project auto scheduling capability. So I'm going to sign out and come back in as Ian Arpel. And I'm going to navigate to our e-commerce platform project, I'll select I'm on my task module. That was the one that was configured in first position via Blueprint. And the key thing here is I want to go to the timeline view. Okay, so I want to draw your attention to the new auto schedule option that's available in the actions pull down. Just for fun, I'm going to go to the board view and you'll see that that option is not there. I'll go to the grid view and that option is not there. So just to let you know, it's only available by design on the task timeline view itself. So I'll go ahead and select that. And I'm presented with an auto schedule modal, which contains the exact same options that are available to the classic PPM Gantt user. Same wording, they've just been obviously repositioned from a UX perspective, but it's the exact same capabilities. So from a scheduling perspective, I'm going to go ahead and select the 24th as the let's start from their perspective and select the auto schedule button. As you can see, the timeline banner itself has a pretty prominent indicator here that we are in a tentative schedule mode. And you can see that the project is also locked while I'm in tentative mode. And then the page also presents kind of a gray shaded bars that indicates the current schedule. I mean, the previous schedule, if you will. And the color-coded bars represent this new tentative schedule. And there's some information here that tells you the new dates and the duration. And if I hover on the original, it indicates original with its start and finish and a duration. So after inspecting this, I can do a couple things. I can go straight to, I don't like the look of this and just go hit discard or hit publish to move forward, but I can also make some adjustments while I'm in the tentative mode. I can take a task and extend its duration. I can slide something back or forth, and you can see the dates update here on the left. I can actually make adjustments to the start here in the cells themselves, and I'll just move that forward a couple days for example purposes. I could edit the finish date as well. I can bring in other columns. Let me search for cost type. I can bring in that. And I'll obviously slide the bar here to expose that there's quite a few fields that are sitting here, but I've chosen to not show them. So there's cost types that I've just brought in. I can also, I can edit any of these values here that I have rights to do. So I can do that. Make adjustments. And so basically after making these final tweaks, making the adjustments and saying, okay, this is good, I can decide to, like I said, hit discard, which would take this back to the previous schedule and unlock it. Or I can hit publish and just go forward. So I'll do that. And it'll just, now the timeline will update. You can see this is all the updated dates. And the project is now unlocked. So that concludes the demo of the new project auto scheduling capability. Let's move on and review the updated task workspace. All right, so let's get started. First thing while I'm here, I'll just stay in as Ian, but I want to draw your attention to the tasks navigation on the main menu. Access rights haven't changed to get here. Essentially what we've done is introduced a very powerful configurable grid that allows you to manage your tasks across multiple investments. This grid is actually closer in functionality to the to-dos workspace, given the fact that it supports multiple objects, if you will. So I'll go ahead and click on the columns panel. I'll just collapse that. And you can see, of course, it's got the tasks object or fields and everything related to tasks, but then it's also got things that are common across all investments that you have access to, and all of the various other custom investment types and or projects that you have access to. So it's very powerful. The prior task workspace was limited to that of projects. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over to the 16.0 just to kind of set the stage of where we've come from in the just as of last release to now, to just set the stage for you. So if you recall, on the projects tiles page, let me get there, projects tiles page, there was a link. I'm in 16.0, right? It was called My Tasks. So I'll go ahead and click that. And it would bring you to, a grid. There's no configuration capability. There's limited filters, right? Project and status. But there was a pre-built filter to show things that for which you were assigned to, right? And so I'm Ian Arpels, so it's showing me everything that I am a team member on, right? So that's kind of where we've come from. And I also want to point out, I'll go back to projects real quick. This link in 16.01 has been removed for obvious reasons. The other thing I want to talk about is I'll just go to the tasks workspace. I'm still in 16.0. Limited filtering, right? Limited filtering. It had a column panel, but it was focused on attributes related to the project, right? So customers have been asking for a way to, hey, how can I make this more configurable, add more filtering, I want to have saved views, all the common reasons why we have moved over to that configurable grid. So with that said, I'll go back to 16.0, close that out. And here we are in the configurable grid. I'll select this task owner view. This is another powerful capability associated with saved views. So this is filtering the grid down to those things that I've chosen that are assigned as owners, where Jason and Peter are the owners of the grid, of the tasks. The other view that's here, oh, and so I can also bring up, here's the filter, the configurable filter capability that allows me to pick any number of users, of course, or any other kind of attribute, right, that I want to filter on. So it's a definite improvement over the prior workspace. I'll close that. The other is widgets. Widgets can be added to this grid as well. There's another section covering on widgets, so I'm not going to go into widget definition, but widgets, as you're seeing, are also popping up all over the various grids and pages in Clarity to summarize and aggregate relevant information to the user. Right? It's almost like some business intelligence that's consolidating information for us and making it really easy to consume the data. Let's go into another view here. This is I've just named it My Tasks. And the reason being is I've used one of the filters, assigned resources, and I've chosen current user. I could have picked any number of users here, but I wanted to make this somewhat generic. So it's always going to show the assigned tasks across investments, whether it's projects and or other custom investment types. And I can treat this like the powerful save view capability we have. Whoops, I want to go into the manage. So my tasks is a shared view, and I've made it the default. So it shows up first for me. But as you can imagine, any user now that logs in, they'll have this save view called My Tasks, and it'll just simply present all tasks for which they are assigned to across the investments. Let me bring in one other thing here. I'm going to pick type. You'll see now this is further. Actually, this one is all projects, but if there were products or programs or business outcomes, that would also show up there to be another indicator of the type of work that you're going to be working on. So I just go back to my tasks and I'll take away that particular column. Okay, so that concludes the demonstration of the new task workspace. And this, by wrapping up the demo for this section, it kind of wraps up task management updates for field level security and the auto scheduling capability. So thank you for your attendance today, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.